I will try to summarize the ongoing work of Task Group 64, which is part of the task of the activities of Committee 1, as it was presented already this morning. So, cancer risk related to alpha emitters. On the current system of radiation protection, you may know already the detriment that we calculate is based on A-bomb survivors and linked to external exposure. It's an instantaneous exposure received on the whole body over a few seconds. So that's relatively different from what happens when you have an internal contamination. So in front of other exposed populations, we have to have major hypotheses that are, some of them here. We have a specific cancer risk with depending on its organ dose. If it's a chronic exposure, we suppose additivity of a long-term exposure, so additivity of annual doses, and we have to take in account time since exposure and also lag time. And in the case of internal alpha emitters, this internal contamination is very often present at the same time than other exposures like external exposure. So we have together gamma and alpha emitters who contribute to the total organ dose. And of course, we have to take into account the quality factors of alpha emitters in comparison to external gamma exposure. So as I said to you already, it's really important to study populations with internal exposure. They are able to validate the presently used radiation protection parameters or to discuss them. And here with the three uranium, plutonium, and radon progenies, we will have the opportunity to compare specific cancer risk like lung cancer based on organ dose that we will express in milligrays or in sievert, millisievert. So what is experience from our task group, who is lasting since many years? For cancer risk related to alpha emitters, there are some criteria that has to be respected. We want the studies to be able to give us a quantification of the dose-risk relationship. So we need good quality of individual exposure or of dose, quality and length of follow-up of the cohorts of workers, and of course, a good size or a large size of the population to consider statistical power related to the relatively low doses. So Task Group 64 decided to review the publication of the last 10 or 15 years. We did it for radon progenies, focusing on uranium minor studies and on indoor studies. We consider also plutonium in the different phases of the nuclear weapons industry, and we consider uranium from nuclear fuel cycle workers, and we have also some consideration on uranium in drinking water. And of course, we take into account synthesis that is already done on international level by WHO, ANSCARE, and others. Another experience is that there is really a difficulty in exposure reconstruction. We have to monitor exposures of the past, or the quality of the individual exposure is really depending on the period when it was registered. For others, like, that's for instance an example for uranium miners. For other workers, we need monitoring of excreted activity through bioassays, and in some situations we have only the approach through a job exposure matrix. So what is important is to consider incorporation. So, as I mentioned already, we are confronted to time dependency in the exposure. And concomitant exposure can be external gamma exposure, but also uranium dust in uranium miners, and also chemicals like for plutonium and uranium workers. Of course, as we are looking at lung cancer, like an entry exposure, we also have to consider smoking information if available. It's also a real complexity of dose assessment. We have to take into account lack of individual information. That may also depend on periods and also on the criteria of registration of the past, when we go back to the medical files or to the files of the workers. We have to consider complex biokinetic models with numerous parameters and associated uncertainties. The ICRP task group, the list of members are presented here. So the current members of current composition are today persons from Committee 1, Committee 2. Committee 2 contribution is really important because in all these situations, the dosimetric approach has changed over time and has to be assessed in detail. We have also experts from outside ICRP, like Julian Apostei, Betsy Ellis, and so on. And of course, we have a large number of corresponding members. Here, I mentioned Ethel Gilbert, John Harrison, and Sergei Zivin, but sometimes we have also contacts with other experts. So during the next minutes, I go briefly through the three radon, uranium, and plutonium alpha emitters. Radon, we know a lot about radon exposure and risk. We have a French cohort of, who has been followed over time. We have seen an excess of lung cancer mortality. The same is true for all the other cohorts over the world. There is really an excess of lung cancer mortality compared to a non-exposed population. And then we can test the exposure-risk relationship because we have a huge number of individual data. And as you see, we have a linear dose-response relationship, which is persisting even among low-exposed minors. And it's persisting after consideration of exposure measurement errors. The risk is decreasing with time since exposure. This is quite comparable to what we know from other lung carcinogens like tobacco. Once you have stopped to be exposed, the risk is declining over, let's say, the following 20 years. We have done case control studies inside these large cohorts in order to test in more detail influence of smoking. And we see the persisting relationship of a link to radon over adjustment on smoking. So the radon progeny have a major contribution to the lung dose when we compare it with all the other radiogenic components. And finally, there is some uncertainties linked to potential association with diseases other than lung cancer. We will come back to this later on. The studies in general population were necessary to verify if relatively low radon inhalation in houses is also related to lung cancer. So there have been a huge number of studies, pooled analyses in Europe, North America, in China, and we have really an increase in lung cancer risk with indoor radon concentrations, even at relatively low annual exposure, if this exposure has been observed over an average of 20 years. We have also a significant relationship if we consider only non-smokers. So now, on the international basis, WHO has published a document demonstrating lung cancer risk associated with indoor radon exposure. That was in 2009. ICRP publication came out in 2010, publication 115. It was an update of scientific literature over the last 20 years, and we had good agreement of risk assessment when we compared the low-dose exposed minors and the indoor studies. And consequently, we had to calculate the lung cancer lifetime detriment due to radon and radon decay products. We had no evidence at that moment of associated risk outside lung cancer. There was a lot of discussions over the last years in the conversion from radon exposure to dose. For a worker, in the 1993 publication, the lifetime lung cancer risk per WLM was 2.8 10⁻⁴. After our new analysis, we came to a lifetime lung cancer risk of 5, 10 - 4. That was published under ICRP 115. I'm not going in all the details of this calculation, but clearly, if we had to transform it in effective dose, it would be multiplied by a factor of 2. I just mentioned that after my presentation in another room, James March is giving more information about the radon dose conversion approach. So we observe an increased lifetime risk, and new dose coefficients have to be provided very soon, will be provided very soon. So briefly, conclusion on radon, Task 64 and publication 115 was a support for the conversion convention between radon exposure and effective dose, and it also supported radiation protection recommendations published under publication 126 in 2015. But we need to continue research. There are still open questions. Interaction between radon and smoking was a huge discussion over the last years, and of course, the background population is not the same in a population where you have a high proportion of smokers or in a population where we have a high proportion of ex- or non-smokers. So lung cancer risk is lung cancer risk associated with childhood exposure? There's another question where it's difficult to answer with the present data. And of course, potential association with other diseases than lung cancer has to be studied. So I just mentioned there is a new international study on uranium miners going on. It's called the PUMA project, which includes a large number of cohorts from the US, Canada, Germany, Czech Republic, and France. And I think in the next, let's say, 2 or 3 years, we will have really an update of the uranium miners' risk coefficient. So that's about radon. Coming now to plutonium. Main studies of workers are here considered, as the Mayak workers in Russia, the UK Sellafield workers, in USA, a large number of workers also. So studies are still going on, but major publication came out very recently. The elaborated dosimetric models play a major role in the final analysis of the plutonium risk, and that's what is major ongoing work. On international collaborations, we have different research programs. In the past, Alpha Risk, SOL and SOLO programs, and also on international level, the GCRER linked to uncertainty studies. So some publication on the cancer among Mayak workers. It's a large cohort. There are several elaborated dosimetric systems that have described this chronic internal contamination. Here I mentioned the publication by Sokolnikov and collaborators. And as you see, the mean plutonium to dose on the 5,000 workers for lung is close to 0.19 gray. And at that time, the follow-up was ended at 2003. We observed for lung an excess relative risk per gray linked to the plutonium dose close to 7. It was 7.1 in males, and the value was higher in females. For liver, it was 2.6 for males and 0.8 for bone. There was no association for other cancer types after adjustment on monitoring status. That was confirmed in a recent publication in 2015, and also no significant association for leukemia. In a publication of 2013, Edel Gilbert and collaborators considered a new follow-up endpoint with 486 lung cancer deaths. They observed an excess relative risk per gray for males, who is quite comparable to the previous one, 7.8. And it's also compatible with a linear non-threshold model. The value declined with attained age. The excess relative risk again was higher among females, and the interaction tested between plutonium dose and smoking was likely to be submultiplicative. The significant dose-risk relationship of 7.4 which is compatible with a no threshold model, as you have seen. And we have about 105 lung cancer deaths attributed to plutonium, and that's about 6% to external exposure. So that's a model published by Gilbert. Now, we have some preliminary conclusions on plutonium risk, but despite limits of the Maya codes, some of them are mentioned here, uranium samples available only for 30% of the cohort, uncertainty when the exposure started, and also sometimes on the chemical form of plutonium, and changes over time in the biokinetic models and parameter values used. And the last point, also migration out of the osseous for 40% of them. Despite these limits, the task group considers that it's possible to estimate plutonium-associated detriment for lung cancer. But the task group considers that we need confirmation from several other studies. When I wrote this these slides, I knew that there was a paper that is close to publication from a parallel analysis of Sellafield and Mayak workers. And I can tell you that finally it was published on Monday, last Monday, online on Radiation Research. So we have really in hand now results that we can discuss considering this study, which is an important one. Another study was published in September 2017 by Grelier and collaborators. It came from also a long-lasting European case control study that included deaths from lung cancer among nuclear workers from UK, France, Belgium, exposed to uranium or plutonium, and made it possible to compare these results with observed in cohort studies. The excess odds ratio per Gray was higher than the one that I previously mentioned to you, but it was reduced to 37 when workers from UK atomic weapons establishment were excluded from the analysis. So these studies with relatively low doses have some uncertainty, but of course have less statistical power than the Mayak study. The median positive lung dose from plutonium was low, median of 1.75 milligray, and when compared with the median cumulative lung dose from external gamma radiation, which is higher. So it's not easy to isolate each part to the contribution of lung cancer. Coming now briefly to uranium, we have a large number of epidemiological studies. I mentioned them here. And again, the limits of these studies are sensitivity to chemical forms. The solubility is not the same depending on the chemical form. There may be chemical and radiological toxicity at relatively high doses, but here we are more confronted to low doses. In some studies, the size is small, or those contributing to the lung dose calculation is relatively limited, and we have also poor control of confounding factors. So, nevertheless, nuclear fuel cycle workers constitute the best population to assess this risk of uranium exposure. They have a long duration of follow-up, relatively long exposure possibilities, and individual monitoring. And as I mentioned already, the carcinogenicity depends on the physical and chemical nature of the uranium components and isotopy. So very low estimated doses are associated here with large uncertainties. Excess or positive associations were observed for lung cancer, lymphatic and hematopoietic malignancies, multiple myeloma, and kidney cancer. The majority of these selected studies have shown no increase in lung cancer risk with exposure to uranium. A French study revealed significant increases after exposure to reprocessed but not natural uranium. Cohorts of uranium enrichment in France and in the US, exposed mostly to rapid soluble uranium components, were in line with this finding. And as I said, the studies of Grelier and also of Silver, published recently, indicate a positive dose-response relationship, but both with large confidence intervals that cannot exclude the absence of a trend. in the study of Grelier when testing for the influence of specific worker groups. The UK AWE and PNFL workforces influence risk coefficient in an opposite direction. So, our preliminary conclusions on uranium. Only a few studies allow quantification of the dose-risk relationship, and there is some difficulty of reconstructing dosimetry, individual dosimetry. Comprehensive review have been published very recently by Ansgar, end of 2016. We have now Grelier's paper, which is based on individually reconstructed exposure of the past. So one question could be, from this cohort of nuclear workers, maybe in the future nested case control studies could be a way to go further. But we need improved studies. Considering new populations, I know that there are several studies going on in other countries, not yet published, and we have to focus on the segmentation of the industrial process. We have to focus on those with the highest organ dose. And of course, improved reconstruction of exposure is necessary, and that's easier possible when we are looking at more recently exposures than on these very past exposures. And of course, consideration of uncertainty is important. So I suppose that international collaborative projects are going on and maybe integrate also some biological markers. Here's some global conclusion from the task group work as it is now. For the risk linked to radon, assessment is performed. It has been supported by recommendation from ICRP, and dose conversion convention will come out very soon. What we have to consider is that communication to public and decision makers is very important, especially out of the field of nuclear industry. This is a new and a major task. For instance, in Europe, we have to implement BSS, basic safety standards, and we are focused to a lot of questions linked to our position. So, in research, what should go on? Have we risks other than lung cancer? And as I mentioned, is there any risk linked to childhood exposure? Because very often we recommend to clean schools, and the idea is that in school we are protecting children, but we have no clear answer from epidemiological studies. Risk linked to plutonium, clearly more results are now available, and from the joint analysis, as I told you, it came out, let's say, 2 days ago. And consideration of uncertainties, we have to check with American and the Russian what comes out from this project. Risk linked to uranium, so we have to do with the limited data presently available, and Ansgar published a large report. And in Ansgar you will find also these questions related to experimental data. So, improved data are necessary on a large scale, that's clear. So collaboration is necessary on international level. And the second conclusion is, what can we do to improve radiation protection based to cancer risk associated with alpha emitters? What seems clear to Task Group 64 is that we have to estimate the detriment linked to lung cancer. How we want to do? By comparing the risk coefficients obtained from population exposed to external gamma exposure on one side, the A-bomb survivors, but also nuclear workers like INWORKS results, and the results from the Maya chemical workers. So on one side, we have different studies with external gamma exposure, A-bomb survivors with a very short exposure, nuclear workers with a chronic exposure. And we compare these results with those observed after inhalation of alpha emitters from radon progeny and plutonium. From uranium, we have not enough information. And for that, we are using a specific scenario of chronic exposure, which is applied on the same population characteristic, I mean age structure, follow-up up to the age of 90, as it is defined in ICRP publication 103. A second question is, these results may contribute to the discussion of RBE. In several papers coming out during the last years, there is some value suggesting an RBE for lung cancer between 10 and 20, but I think that has to be considered more carefully, and it's really the work of ICRP and the task groups. On the other hand, more research is needed as there is a suggestion of risk of non-cancer diseases. If there would be a risk linked to cerebrovascular or cardiac diseases, this cannot be neglected when calculating the detriment. So, best thanks for your attention.